1977 was a groundbreaking year for GM's companion company Pontiac in more ways than just one. The Firebird received a 70s facelift and was propelled to movie car stardom thanks to Burt Reynolds and Jerry Reed in the cult classic Smokey and the Bandit. The Bandit Trans Am seemed to have aided Pontiac into a whole new level of popularity in the mid-size muscle car world at the time, which was a time when muscle cars were also themselves failing due to emissions laws and high gas prices. But Pontiac wasn't just stopping at the Firebird to show off a little muscle in '77. For what turned out to be its only production year, Pontiac designed another V8-powered muscle car with a little bit more luxury and style than its silver screen counterpart. This car was the last bastion of big-bodied V8 performance in an era that all but wiped the floor clean with it. Yet this car is almost unheard of, and it was a one-year production exclusive for what is potentially one of the dumbest reasons ever. This is the story of the 1977 Pontiac Can Am. Now, if you were going to have your car looking spotless this summer, then you might as well make sure your lawn looks the part as well, which is why we've partnered with Sunday for this video. Sunday is a DIY leading lawn care provider, and they will help you get your lawn looking as good as your ride this summer. Sunday takes the guesswork out of lawn care. All you have to do is go to getsunday.com/rare and input your address, and Sunday will do all the guesswork of estimating your lawn size and soil composition so that they can give you a tailored lawn care plan just for you. I am actually using Sunday to get my lawn looking good for this summer, and I love just how simple they make the process. And that unlike other solutions, Sunday uses no harsh or unwanted chemicals to get the job done, just powerful ingredients backed by cutting-edge plant science. And right now you can get a whopping 30% off your custom Sunday lawn plan by using the code RARE30 at checkout. Link below in the description, and thank you to Sunday for sponsoring this video. Now, before we go too far in, let me give you a little bit of background. The 4th Gen Le Mans started in 1973, and it was a staple of the Pontiac car lineup since '61. This new 1977 Pontiac Can Am was meant to be a rejuvenation of the muscle car, built on the Le Mans chassis. Now, Pontiac is responsible for the GTO, which is effectively the first muscle car ever, and it sold very well throughout the '60s. Then when the oil crisis hit and the world forced the powerhouse V8s to be put on the back burner, the GTO was reduced to a shell of its former self. However, Pontiac's marketing legend at the time, Jim Wangers, was the guy behind the scenes whipping up the marketing materials to convince American men that they needed a muscle car, and he still had something to say about this lack of horsepower and the dehorning of the American muscle car into the mid-70s. See, Wangers was also one of the marketing leads on the GTO, as well as several other cars, such as the Mustang Cobra II, the Dodge Aspen RT, and the AMC Hornet, to name a few. Wangers looked to revive that muscle car fever and used the same platform that he used a decade ago to do it. Now, the GTO namesake was discontinued in 1974, and the whole Trans Am was selling like crazy in the pony car market, while the Le Mans itself was fading into the shadows behind its GM siblings like the Cutlass and Chevelle. So to combat this, Wangers proposed a performance package for the Le Mans chassis, something that would bring the company's heritage back from the golden age of the muscle cars. Wangers, however, wanted to set the Can Am apart from the other cars he had previously helped design by adding true performance options over its Le Mans base. And just like the Le Mans and the Grand Prix before it, the Pontiac would be named after a famous race event. The Canadian American Challenge Cup would give its name to the now Pontiac Can Am. And with the oil crisis of the mid-70s seemingly starting to subside at the time, at least in the public perception, Pontiac believed that this car would be able to take off and hopefully create a second wind for the muscle cars. But to do so, the Can Am first and foremost had to stand out. Again, based on the Le Mans Sport Coupe body, the two-door Can Am featured a long swept body with a square front and rear end with matching taillights as a sign of the times. The Can Am also featured louvered quarter windows and received the Trans Am shaker hood scoop and a ducktail fiberglass rear spoiler sourced from the Grand Am All-American show car. Every Can-Am was finished in a white paint job. As per Wanger's demand, also came equipped with a tri-tone stripe package in orange, yellow, and gold. Can-Am decals were added in the same colors to the front fenders and to the trunk lid to perfectly finish that late 70s look. The Can-Am was brash and it made no apologies for what it was. This was to be the era's newest and hottest performance offering. Under the hood of this muscle car hopeful was a true powerhouse, at least for the era, which was a beefed up version of Pontiac's W72 Series V8. Pumping out 200 horsepower in the Can-Am was the 400 cubic inch or 6.6 liter Pontiac mill, which featured a 4.12 inch bore and a 3.75 inch stroke with a painfully low compression ratio of just 7.6 to 1. This engine also came equipped with a flat tappet camshaft and a 4-barrel carburetor. This new W72 engine was meant to replace the 455 Pontiac, which also created 20 horsepower more than the Le Mans Sport Coupe motor and 15 more horsepower than the 403 engine from Oldsmobile, who was Pontiac's sister company. I know, 200 horsepower for a muscle car that was the size of the Can-Am is pretty low. But again, you have to remember the times. In 1977, a Corvette only had 210 horsepower. Plus, the Can-Ams were extremely choked out by their single exhaust, and this meant that minor mods could actually gain you a substantial amount of power. Just swapping to a higher compression piston set could definitely gain you a ton of power over stock as well. Interestingly enough, Pontiac reportedly built about 40 or so Can-Ams with the aforementioned Oldsmobile 403 engine, which was rated at 185 horsepower. Now, these cars were mostly delivered to California and other high-altitude areas, likely also for emissions reasons. And behind the 200 horsepower power plant sat the old reliable Turbo 400 transmission, which was a 3-speed automatic, and it came equipped with 308 rear gears to help give the Can-Am the ultimate freeway cruising capability and also give it better fuel economy to meet regulations. While the Oldsmobile power versions, albeit only the 40 of them, were given a Turbo 350 3-speed automatic transmission, and get this, a ridiculously long-legged 241 rear gear ratio. Performance tests for the Can-Am in 1977 saw the car reach a 0 to 60 in about 10 seconds, which was similar to the 455 Power Le Mans from the year earlier, which was 55 cubic inches larger in displacement. And the Can-Am was capable of a 17-second quarter-mile time from the factory. Yeah, 17 seconds really isn't getting out of the way of anything, but for 77, it wasn't the slowest thing out there. Keeping the Can-Am on the ground was part of the forefront for GM suspension tuning at the time. With radial-tuned suspension packages and the use of a front and rear sway bar, the Can-Am actually didn't handle bad. The car utilized the GM A-body suspension setup that existed for the chassis, which consisted of unequal length upper and lower A-arms in the front, as well as a 4-link rear suspension. The Can-Am provided a smooth but firm ride, and it gave a good mix of performance and comfort for the era. Helping stop the car was a set of power-assisted front disc and rear drum brakes. And finishing off the chassis was a set of 15-inch Rally 2 wheels that were wrapped in GR70 15 steel-belted tires. Keeping the car classy on the inside, Pontiac swapped out the Le Mans instrument cluster for the wood grain one from the Grand Prix, which included a rally gauge cluster and a factory clock. The Can-Am also featured a 3-spoke steering wheel as well as options for a bench and bucket seats with the center console. The interior was limited to only 3 color options: white, black, and Firethorn red. Now, with all this work over a regular Le Mans to turn the Can-Am into something special, you might be wondering, why was it only built for 1 year? Well, upon the Can-Am's initial release in 1977, production was underway, and initial orders peaked at about 5,000 cars. Then, of all things that could happen, the fiberglass mold for the Can-Am's rear spoiler got compromised, and this halted production. One little thing like this mortally wounded the Can-Am, and in the downtime, Pontiac executives also determined that because the Can-Am used the Grand Prix parts in the cluster, that it was taking away from Grand Prix sales, which was a car that was flying off the shelves for Pontiac. And after about 6 months of production, Pontiac decided to scrap the car entirely from its lineup, with those two things being cited as the main reasons. In those 6 months of production, only a total of 1,133 Pontiac Can Ams were built and delivered, while the Grand Prix was running a track record for sales with almost 300,000 units sold that production year. And even though it was seemingly very short-lived and an objectively failed attempt, the V8-powered 77 Can Am was a noble attempt for the era to rescue and resurrect the muscle car after the depression of horsepower caused by the oil crisis. The Can Am was quick for the era, and it was killed off simply because of a mold failure and money-grubbing executives who, yes, they saw the dollar signs in the actual Grand Prix, but they lost sight of the Can Am and Pontiac's heritage with performance. So if you happen to see a 77 Can Am, be sure to check it out because there are not many of these cars left. If you have any stories about the Pontiac Can Am, please share them in the comments down below. We would love to hear them. And thank you all for watching another episode of our Rare Cars documentary series. If you enjoyed this video, we would greatly appreciate it if you could drop a like and also share this video with other enthusiasts. Also, please make sure that you are subscribed to the Rare Cars YouTube channel and smash that notification bell for more documentary-style videos just like this on the world's most interesting cars. Until next time, enthusiasts.